All right, welcome everybody to the special agenda property committee meeting. We're going to go ahead and get started with roll call. So I see that we have everybody present excepting Chair Barnett and Member Bloomfield. We have, under the consent agenda, we have both minutes to approve and approval of bills and transfers. Do I have a motion? Member Klein, second by Member Lehman. Any comments or questions? And we did get another transfer added to, which Julie will update the packet with. Over here, referring to interest expense for the Public Building Commission that we were not, when they first did this, we did not have what the interest amount would be, and so they're adding it in. So any questions? All right. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right. So moving on. Up next, we have item 3, appearance by members of the public.
We have no request to speak tonight.
Okay. Moving on to departmental matters, Mr. Steffa.
Good afternoon. I do not have any action items. All I have is a general report for y'all, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from the committee? I think I only had one about the truck transmission.
Yes.
What happened? What happened with our dump truck?
It's just they were going down the road with a load of wood and coming back from West Park, and it just blew.
That was clearing up the trees?
Yes.
Okay.
Starting to, we still got a long ways to go. That was a pretty good storm down there.
Okay. All right. Well, if that is all, up next we have Mr. Doherty.
Thank you. I have no action items for this evening. Have my monthly report, and to kind of highlight that, we're working on heating equipment and seasonal outside tasks, winterization. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions about that's on the report.
I know in the report you had mentioned about the riprap being placed at Lake Bloomington. Is that something that we're working with the city of Bloomington on? Because you said it was no cost to.
On the which, excuse me?
For Lake Bloomington? Oh, I'm sorry, that's Mike's. My bad. Well, we can talk about it.
You want me to go ahead and answer?
Yeah, if you could.
Yeah, there's been an ongoing project for over 10 years now. Excuse me, between Lake Bloomington and Evergreen Lake, with the Soil and Water Conservation District and the city of Bloomington and the county. And it's a shoreline stabilization project to decrease lake turbidity and sedimentation going into the water. And they've been working over at Lake Bloomington for the last couple of years, but they're switching back to Evergreen next year, and they've got I can't remember exactly how many feet approved for rip wrapping, but it's a pretty good chunk.
Okay, and is that, I know that it's soil stabilization, but is that also for the quality of the lake?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's also for water quality.
Okay, all right, thank you. Sorry about that. Any questions for Mr. Doherty on his monthly report? Nope, okay. All right, then moving on, Ms. Taylor?
Thank you, Chair Johnson. The first action item I have to present tonight is a request for approval for a Veterans Day event on the museum grounds. This committee has spoken before about the upcoming events over Veterans Day at the Old Courthouse Museum, and they have a group, Veterans Committee, that is put together from several different veterans groups. The VFW, the American Legion Posts, all came together to start a committee for that event this November. And they would like permission to have their event on those grounds. They are getting the proper permits from the city of Bloomington, but because the county owns that property around the museum, they wanted to be good neighbors and good stewards of that property and ask us as well. They are planning to have about a 30 to 45-minute presentation that day, and they have lots of different activities that will be happening on the grounds. And so I ask your permission to approve that request. We need a motion.
Motion by member Wojcinski, second by member Rogel. Any comments or questions? All in favor? It is not. Thank you, Julie. I was waiting for the mic. All right, we had a motion from member Wojcinski, second by member Rogel. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, passes.
Thank you. The next item for action is C1B, request approval of fiscal year 2023 recommended budget for the Facilities Management Department. You have listed there B1 through B8, and that goes from page 7 to page 30 in your packet. And I turn it back to you for motion.
Yeah, can we get a motion for the budget? Motion by member Klein, second by member Lehman. And this would be the time to ask comments and questions about the budget.
And I do have a short PowerPoint presentation, if I may.
Yes.
Now that we've woke everybody up with the bell. As an overview for facilities management budget, daily responsibilities for facilities includes custodial work. James Gilbraith is the supervisor for that side of operations. And then, of course, Tim Doherty, who comes to the meeting every month, is in charge of the maintenance side. The facilities that we maintain are the Juvenile Detention Center, 200 West Front, the Old Courthouse Museum, Metcom, the Law and Justice Center, the new jail annex, the animal shelter, and Government Center, the EMA garage, and the Fairview building. Nursing home is also one of our buildings, but that is included in the nursing homes budget. They have their own maintenance team that works on that building. And so as you can see by our pie chart, 60% of the expenses for this budget are for services. That's different than most of our departments. Most of the departments have salaries as the highest percentage. In this department, it's services, 27% for salaries, 5% for supplies, and 8% for capital assets. So overall expenses for all buildings increased by 12%. There are several places where we have some increases, and you can read them there. I do have a data entry error that I'd like to point out on page 23 in your packet. It's in the museum courthouse budget. On page 23, I'll wait a second for you all to get there. On line 0801.0002, lease purchase improvements.
Hold on, we need to look at the page number. Which one is this? Is this
Nope,
the old
it's-
courthouse?
It's the old courthouse program.
So we have 16 through 18 for the old courthouse.
Oh, it's not on page 23.
So on page 17.
It is on page 17.
Yeah.
It is line 801.0002 LP improvements. That line is for the loan for our roof and should be $62,680 instead of $60,000 even. So it should be $62,680. Thank you. Going back to the slide, we had increases for salary lines in response to compensation study results. There's also an increase to minimum wage. We added 2 positions to this department, an administrative assistant and a maintenance worker 2. We feel that the many projects that we are working on now with our bond issue, our ARPA funds, and then other related projects that were deferred and we are getting to now require extra help. And so we've added that to the budget. And then we had decreases in maintenance line from elevator work that those budgetary amounts were moved to the PBC budget. So the high dollar ticket items are usually a highlight. And so we've listed these major expenses for each of the buildings. These can be found in line 744 if they're a replacement or a repair. And they could be found in the 800 lines if they're a capital improvement or a capital asset. And so going through these per building, we had one project at JDC, and that's the repayment of the roof loan. We had one for 200 West Front, that is for the elevator loan. We had 2 projects for the old courthouse, the loan repayment, but also $25,000 for the air sealing of the rotunda space. That is from their air quality study that they completed last year. We had 3 projects for the L&J, vestibule heaters, exterior building restoration, and a water conditioning system. And then, is that 6 projects at the government center? I won't read the whole slide to you. Did we have any questions?
Can we slide the chair?
Oh, sure.
Out of the way? Thank you. Any questions about the projects?
Or the 800 lines, yep. And if you had a question about anyone in particular, we could point it out where it's at.
Member Lehman?
So, if you could help me understand on, let's see, I'm at the courthouse on line 744. This past year, it was 283,000, and then we only used, the actual amount was 5,000, and then we budgeted 35,000. Was that just work that wasn't able to be done because we only have the 5,000 that was an actual amount from 2022, or is that yet to be paid on?
So when the budget was written for 22, we knew that we were gonna have the bond issue to replace the elevator. And it was my understanding when I wrote the budget that the expenses would be paid out of here, but actually the PBC pays the expenses.
Okay,
So that is why.
okay, thank you for that.
You'll see the same thing in the government center, or the Law and Justice Center as well.
Just to be sure that right now we're on the facilities management budgets. Okay. On go the glasses. Okay, couple of questions. I need some clarification if I could on, I'm looking at the Metcom Center, and this is a sort of repeated issue on a few. The contra salary line, could you help explain to me? Because there's a lot of shifting both in the 500 lines and also in the 790 lines for contra rent, and also anytime, employee benefits, et cetera, are involved. So could you help explain some of that?
Absolutely, Member Klein. So the contra rent is reimbursement to facilities, to that facilities budget from other county departments for their RUM or rent utilities and maintenance. Previously, we coded that to rent or utilities, and our last audit, they recommended that we create contra lines for these type of services instead of just transferring that in as a revenue. And so that's just reflection of rent, utilities, and maintenance.
You'll see the same thing in the 200 West Front Street budget,
Sorry, so it's a kind of a repeatable thing throughout, so I
just for
didn't know.
those two buildings.
Okay. I have another question in my lab. Okay, so I'm looking at the 200 West Front building and this sort of health department rent VAC, the 420s lines. All of those have gone down to 0.
Related to the contra lines, so those,
Okay, so this one doesn't say contra lines on it, but that's where it's moving from. Is that what you're saying? They just have zeros.
In the 700s, there's a contra rent, contra expense line.
So this is, it's
And
moving from the
that's-
420s to the 700s?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then sticking with the 200 West Front building, I just noticed we had a pretty sizable reduction in the cleaning supplies and the building grounds equipment supply. I was just curious, what's the result of that one? If we're, going with a different vendor, is it just because we haven't been using the full amount each year? Do we have a new magical process for cheaper cleaning ingredients? Because I'd love to know that one.
because of maintenance and custodial. In consultation with Ms. Dreyer, those are also reduced because of the contra expenses and cleaning up, if you will, those lines. On a separate note, not related to that figure, we do have supplies left from the multitude of different products that we bought during the pandemic, at the height of the pandemic, that we are using up. And I know that James is being very careful and thoughtful in making sure that he uses up those supplies. Mhm.
Sorry, I'm working my way through here. So maybe this is another contra line, just sort of question. I'm on the Law and Justice Center. Just had a question about part-time employee salaries have gone way down. Previously, well, they kind of fluctuate. So in 2021, it was 19,000, 2022, 88,000, and now we're back to 17,000. What accounts for that variance?
I think that's just his shifting of the position from different buildings, right? Mm-hmm. So this is shifting, James shifted positions and the amount of FTE workers in different buildings, and so you probably saw a big increase in other buildings that are capturing that.
Okay.
It's just a shifting from one building to another. His staff were not reduced.
Okay, good.
Is that a reflection of how much time is needed at each of the buildings being shifted around?
Truly, I think it's just how we captured them. We have, if you have 10 staff, but they're divided up by 10 buildings, it's how you divide it up budgetarily between those. And I think we probably listed, if he's got a staff member that works in more than one building, we probably just shifted them over to one of the other buildings.
Okay.
Oh. I did my homework, hold on.
Yes, you
So, I have one more question. I think on your other slide, you sort of answered it, but I guess I have a question. I'm on the Government Center, excuse me, the 744 line. So we've gone from, okay, we have a big increase, right? A 431% increase. I just had a question so all of these projects, I'm not questioning the necessity of these projects, but all of these are projects that did not get covered with ARPA. Is that right? These were things that have needed to be done but didn't get done with the ARPA funds.
Right. So ARPA was not meant to cover all of the building improvements that we need to make. And so this building is shared with the city of Bloomington. Any costs for improvements are split with the city of Bloomington.
Right.
And so these were projects that we had, most of these were in our capital improvement plan, 5-year plan,
Okay.
to be completed. And so they're just realizing their year, and it may have been with consultation with Mr. Doherty that some of these projects were moved up or moved back, depending on the urgency
Okay.
and the priority that those projects.
So the $1.5
fell.
million in the budget this year, this is gonna be matched by the city of Bloomington? Any part of it?
The 1.5 is the total cost, so the city reimburses for half of that,
Okay.
and then we have the other half as our expense.
So the in total will be something more like 77,000 or something like that.
Well, do you
70,
see
70,
in the
75.
revenues, there's 2.1 million of PBC reimbursements? Half of that
Half
is
of that.
in there.
Okay, it's already factored in. Okay, it's just not itemized. Okay, thank you.
I did want to flip back to our page 20, which is the Law and Justice Building. I had noticed there was a big shift as well in the postage. And so if you could speak a little bit to how we go from $2,000 expense to $305 to $2,400.
So the yearly expense for postage is about $800, but we also pay for a PO box, and that is around $1,600. So last year that was not reflected in the budget, but that has since been paid for this year, for 2022. And so that is the PO box and the cost for postage.
So kind of moving forward, it'll be closer to the 2,400 every year, even though it was 900, then 800. Okay. Just wanted to check. Thank you. Any other questions on these budget items? These budget presentations? No, so we take a vote then. So all in favor of item C1B, say aye. Opposed? I think that's unanimous.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is C1C, request approval of fiscal year 2023 recommended budget for the Parks and Recreation Department. And that is found on pages 31 through 35 and includes Park Operations Fund as well as a Recreational Services Program, C1 and C2.
Do I have a motion? Motion by member Wachinski, second by member Rogal. Questions about these items? Did you want to discuss this as well? You have a
Yes, I have a
presentation?
couple of slides if I
Perfect.
may.
Absolutely.
So the Parks and Recreation budget overview, this is the revenue side of the parks. The mission statement is there for you to read. As you look at this, the revenues increased by 2% from last fiscal year. Beach receipts were the only revenue item that showed a decrease, and I think that was because of our numerous challenges this year with the beach that we hope will improve next year. And then on the expenses side, our overall expenses increased by 15%. Service, salaries, of course, with the compensation study are recommended for increase. We also have in the supplies, some areas of interest would be there's a $6,000 increase for fuel, including oil, diesel, and gasoline. For services, there's a $30,000 request for a new roof on the beach house. For capital assets, you have $10K for the inflow and outflow of the sewage treatment plant. Those pumps are needed. And then also budgeted $10K for a golf cart and $20K for a new section of rental dock. So overall, salaries are 57% of this budget. Supplies are 15, services 22%, and capital assets or projects are 6%.
Any questions about this part of the budget? I am curious with the addition of the dock, like what kind of additional revenue might that bring in to help cover some of that cost?
That could potentially bring in up to 10,000.
A year?
Yes,
Okay. So potentially could pay for itself in two.
yes.
Okay. It's good to know. The other question I had was, and this may just be kind of an expense just going up with inflation and with pricing. I had noticed in the budget on the gas service went up 80%. And I had seen across, other departments where we had seen gas services going up. But this one in particular went up. It's on page 32. The
FS contract. Your FS contract?
the FS contract. So you can talk a little bit why, that one went up more than other departments. Can you talk a little bit about what happened there?
Yeah, this year we're going to be over budget in that line. We're anticipating fees for that to remain high. That's why we budgeted,
A little extra.
yes.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate that. Any other questions? Yes, Member Klein.
I don't want to disappoint you. Of course I have questions. I just have a question about the lifeguards. So this past year, we didn't do lifeguards at the beach, but I'm looking at the staffing line. You've got, head lifeguard and a regular lifeguard salaries there. So are we anticipating refilling those and having lifeguards this coming year?
We're going to try our best to staff that, because my opinion is that some people shy away from the beach because we don't have lifeguards. So it's my anticipation to get lifeguards hired down there.
So we're going to try.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions? No? All right. Well, then all in favor? Any opposed? I think that has it. Last item, Ms. Taylor, that you have for action.
Yeah, so the last item for action is approval of the capital improvement plan. That is a separate book, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about the capital improvement plan. Just as a reminder, any of the expenses that were recommended for 2023 are in the 2023 budget. And then we have the ongoing plan for the following 4 years.
Anybody have any questions about the capital improvement plan? I guess we should take a motion. Member Lehman for the motion, second by Member Rogal. Any questions, comments, thoughts about the capital improvement plan? It's another very ambitious plan. I really appreciate the thought that's gone into putting this and the budget together to meet these goals. It's been a big push to try to get onto a good maintenance plan with the county so that we are investing dollars wisely, saving money in the long run. So I was glad to see some of this. I did have a couple of questions. I didn't know if you had a chance out at the highway department, the images with the pavement where they were concerned about the pavement. You didn't get any pictures from Mr. Stokes? Okay. That was one of my concerns is where we're kind of putting money. I know that we are looking at the budget, and I know that there's going to be a discussion about trying to balance it. And so looking at areas of, I was curious how deteriorated that pavement is.
The $300,000 for the highway department parking area is included in the budget. That is going to be paid for out of our ARPA funds and will be discussed further at the executive committee level. But Member Johnston had requested pictures from Mr. Stokes to see the areas of deterioration, and I don't have those yet.
Okay. And then the other issue was the replacing, and we're trying to be, it sounds like we're trying to be proactive also out at the highway department on the carpet replacements. And I know that we've had specifically at our coroner's office, where the carpet's already a tripping hazard. And I was wondering if there was anything like that happening at highway, or they were just being proactive.
There are areas where it is worn and torn and a trip hazard. And so, obviously, some areas where there's major traffic has more wear than in the actual offices, but it is beyond its useful life.
Okay. All right. Those are my questions. Anybody else? Oh, I guess I did have another question, and I think this one's directed more at Mr. Doherty. When we talk about the systems upgrade for both it's the Law and Justice and the Government Center, correct? That we're talking about doing the systems upgrade that would help with reducing staff time and diagnostics.
The building automation system.
Yes.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about, because I think from your perspective, like this is your wheelhouse, this is what you do. But for when I read it, I had a hard time trying to understand like what benefits we would be gaining from that upgrade. So if you could talk a little bit about that and the
Sure.
value of the expense, because I think total it was about $550,000
Sure.
for the upgrades.
The building automation system, in case anyone doesn't know, is it's a basic control system that turns equipment on and off, regulates valve positions, dampers, what have you. And we have quite an alienated system, to be quite frank about it. It's quite old, and there's a lot of problems. And a lot of those problems stem from just serviceability over the years. The controls are no longer available is the big thing. I'm going to shift gears to this building. A few years ago, the building control system went belly up in this building, and we bought a used system. And it's in the same fashion now. I mean, it's bought us some time, but it's now going to have to be put under the microscope to be upgraded. The ultimate goal with any efficient building automation system is some energy management. So we're hoping we can gain control of our equipment and lighting and be able to do some green things.
So ultimately, this could save money, this could save energy.
Yes.
Okay. And that has to do with not just the lighting, but also temperature management.
It's more temperature management and equipment control. For instance, we have a lot of things that you call it fixed in a manual position. So instead of regulating, like you can hear this fan regulating and for this room, it's not doing that. It's running at a constant speed, 24/7, and basically no savings.
So is there any way to calculate what potential savings we might get from doing something like that, or?
There probably is. I mean, we can look into that. I don't have those numbers in front of me, and the biggest thing is calculate the man hours. We send a man around every morning, and he spends an hour of his day just looking for the tall trees, things that are abnormal. For instance, this month we found a chiller that is purging. It has a leak on it. So it's something we need to get fixed before winter, before all the refrigerant is evacuated over the winter. I mean, it could, winters can be a long, cold time, and the refrigerant can escape, and come spring, we won't be able to start up. So that's in the Law and Justice Center, in the annex. So that's a situation right there where a building automation system, if it was functional, completely functional, may give us a clue. It's just something that was visually observed during our routine morning rounds. Now, we'll continue to do morning rounds, but we won't have to dive as deep and take hopefully as much. We'll reduce some of that time too. So.
correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Doherty, but the BAC is kind of the brain of the building, and it tells you, gives you a lot of advance notice when things are not operating as they should, so that you can correct them before we have major repairs that are costly.
That's correct.
And that's just a system that you have, like a program installed on your, like on your
Yes,
computer that you
it's a
can-
graphical program on the front end of our PCs, and so all the guys can access it if need be. Some of them would rather not, but anyway, it gives you a graphic representation of what's going on in the building.
Okay.
So temperatures can be adjusted for various buildings and various rooms. We can tell if a cooling tower's running, a pump's running, that sort of thing.
And is that something as the manager, right, as the facility maintenance manager, like, that you would get notifications if there are major problems?
I hope to. I hope to
Okay.
get alarms coming
Sure.
forward. Right now, our alarm system is basically a phone call, a
Yeah,
complaint
right.
about temperatures. So we should, in a perfect world, we should see an alarm come up on our PC screen that says, hey, pump XYZ failed or something like that. Or an air handler went down, but we're just not there yet.
So I would assume that would mean being able to catch the problems earlier when they might be more affordable to fix.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. I appreciate you taking the time to explain that.
Sure.
All right. Well, any other questions? All right. All in favor of the capital improvement plan? Any opposed? I think it's unanimous. All right.
The next item is an item for information only. That is an amendment to the Ragland Buildings Agreement. This will be presented to the Executive Committee next week, but we did find an oversight in the color for the building, and we don't want a galvanized steel gray building in our beautiful park. We would like one that is in the same color theme as our other buildings. And there were some other minor items that we needed to put forth in a change order. And so we will be introducing that at executive, and just wanted to make you aware. That's all.
If there are no other items, any business or communication from members of the committee? Well, if I don't hear anything, then thank you so much for your time today, and we are adjourned.